Alright, today we are going to cut up a whole chicken into pieces. A couple of tools. One is a cabinet liner or a wet towel you want to lay on your counter and put your cutting surface on top of it so it doesn't move around on you. A very sharp knife. We hone our knives every time we use them, just a little bit, and keeps them sharp. If they're not sharp, this is not going to sharpen them. We need to actually sharpen the knives, and this will just help keep them from dulling as quickly. We're going to do a boneless breast on this bird. This is about a 4-pound bird. So we'll start with the wings. The biggest thing when you're cutting is you're never going to cut through a bone. So if you find that you're cutting through a bone, then you're probably doing something wrong and you should start over. So the weight of the bird is holding the wing out like this. We're just holding up in the air. I'm going to use the weight of the bird to kind of peel this wing off, and I'm just very lightly cutting through the joint. I'm doing this a little slower than normal so you can see. But you can see the joint is open. I'm going to cut through the wing and maybe just bend it back a little bit. There. Cut through that tendon. And there's tendons there. Now the wing is off, so that's how you dislocate it. Cut through these little tendon pieces. There's your wing. Do the same with the other side. We usually leave the wings whole. If you didn't want this tip on it, I mean, you can fold them kind of nice like that if you're throwing them on a grill. If you don't want the tip, you know, you can kind of cut through the joint, just find the joint and cut through it. There's going through some bone because I was not paying enough attention, but we usually leave them whole. You know, it's kind of nice to wrap them up like that. The next thing is to take the thighs off. Open it up. If you're going to do a boneless breast, you want to leave as much of this skin on the thigh as possible. If you're leaving the skin on the breast, I mean, even if it's boneless, you probably could leave the skin on. You want to cut more in this joint. But for this purposes, we're going to do boneless, skinless breast. So we're actually going to kind of spread that out and just gently cut through the skin. Leaving as much on the thigh as we can. I'm holding it a little funny just so you can see better. Okay, and we'll do the same on the other side. So you see most of that skin now is off the breast. We're able to save that, which will help your thighs cook a lot better. It's much easier if you can dislocate the thighs. So we're going to flip this upside down. And right here are where the thighs connect in with the hip joint. So we're putting our thumbs on those bones that kind of protrude a little bit, and just push in with my thumbs and then pull back on the back of it. So this one, you can see, is kind of popped out. We'll pop the other one out. And they're both dislocated, pulls all the way back. You don't have to go this far, but just kind of to show. And then on the other side, you can see this bone is already coming out of the joint. Okay? Nice deep red thigh muscle there. This is a little older bird, so it looks very nice. There's a couple of muscles to pay attention to in the thigh. In here is kind of your oyster muscle. These are really nice ones. I'd like to scoop those out. They're a little bit harder to get into, so we're going to start by pulling this back. And I'm just going to, I'll do it real slow here. Just kind of carve in up the back. Probably should have gone the other way, but you can kind of scoop it out. It's a scooping motion. You'll see when we have it out that you can get that whole thigh out. And then we'll cut up along the back. So now that you have it empty, you can see there's kind of a divot there. It's like a clamshell almost, and that's kind of the motion that we did with the knife, was we scooped it out, cut in and scoop out. And from there, you can really just follow that line all the way back up to the joint. You'll see there are some more tendons in here, so the same with the wing, we're just going to cut through those tendons and bend it back. One more tendon is probably connecting it right there, snapped out. So now we'll follow the same, there's kind of a similar scooping motion in the front, but it's not as intricate, I guess, so you can kind of just cut along the top here. I'm not sure if I can do this without being able to see. Might be easier to show after the fact. Okay, so here is a similar bone, scoops in this way. I would typically cut it kind of like in one motion, not as broken apart as you saw, but cut it one motion that's kind of like this, and then back down like that. So here's a good looking thigh. We have the oyster muscle saved here, everything's nice like that. So we'll set this aside as our dark meat quarter, and I'll try to do the other side a little bit more eloquently, I guess. Maybe this will be a better angle to show this front one. You can cut it away like that. Okay, so I didn't do as good of a job, but it was a little faster. You could see a little better, I think. So there's our dark quarters. You can set those aside. For the breasts, I like to just take the rest of this skin off. There's a little membrane there. You can slice through it, or you can use your fingernails, and you should be able to just pull it off. So it's boneless, skinless, or skinless, I guess, right now. So if any of you have ever filleted a fish, this is real similar to that idea. We're just going to kind of peel the breast off. So there's a keel bone here on top that you kind of cut down either side of, and then slowly peel it off that way. There's the wishbone is back here. We're not going to take the wishbone out. Some people will recommend you do a bunch of cuts and dislocate that, take it out. It's a lot of extra work. You can just cut around it if you're careful. So we're going to just cut along the side here of the keel bone down to the wishbone right there. I can stop on it. I'm not going to push through it. Gently slicing in. When I get all the way down to the ribs, you can see we're all the way down. This is the tender underneath, and this is the main breast on top. So we want to keep those together if we can. It's not always possible. And we kind of really are just going to do this real slow, but you're kind of really just peeling it off, not cutting it. So maybe there's little slices here and there, but we're not trying to cut. So they're actually accidentally cut, and that's kind of what you get, is a little sliver that is not connected. It's maybe a better angle. You can hold it, pull it up like that. Just little tiny cuts, pulling it off, just like you might with a fish. Got a little bit of bone there, so I'm going to cut that shorter. Okay. And now we've gotten down to the wishbone. It'll be easier to see when we have it all off, but you want to cut at an angle underneath the bone, a sharp angle underneath it, and then I think we can kind of peel off that meat without losing too much. I lost a little bit there. And again, peel the rest of this off right there. Sometimes it's best even to cut on top of that bone so you don't miss that sliver. So there's our boneless, skinless breast. And then to kind of go through the anatomy, with that underneath cut, here's the wishbone. The underneath cut was right there with the idea of kind of scooping out this inside portion. It's not really required, you could just pull it out later, but if you want the most on your breast, if you're using it as a whole cut, it's nice to cut that, and even maybe this underneath here. You can also cut a little further down. I missed this piece that could go on kind of an extended breast. They're usually not on breast in the supermarket, but it's a nice piece of meat that you could use similar to the oyster shell. And if you're doing it in a chicken tacos or something, it's kind of already cut up. Okay, we'll do this other side. Scoop underneath that wishbone. A little bit awkward at the angle, but I think it'll work. Okay, so this is ready for soup bones. If it's me, I like to cut it. There's kind of a line right here where the ribs connect. I like to break it down there. I wish the spine will just break in half, and then you can, I guess I have to slice it a little bit sometimes, and stick it right in so it fits, so you can put it in a freezer bag, use that for soup bones later. Alright, so we got our boneless breasts, our extra white meat, our wings, and our dark quarters. So we need to go through how to separate these if you want the legs and the thighs separated. If we look on the meat side, you can see there's kind of cut me lines right here that are there. So this is right where that joint is, and again, we're not going to want to cut through the bone, we want to cut right through the joint. So we can, if you bend this, it will kind of hyper extend the joint or hyper compress the joint. And right where those cut me lines are, I think it's a little bit in actually, you can see there's the joints open, and we're just going to cut in, trying to not hit the joint. I'm doing this kind of awkwardly, but not hit it and then go through. That starts it, and then you know where it is better. You can see where that's going to come in, and then should be able to just cut relatively through it. I guess I got a little bone there. That's not the way to do it. You can always screw it up and know that you're not perfect, and you don't have to be. Practice makes perfect. Usually, I just kind of feel where it is. There's a joint. Cut right there. So that was actually pretty good. It had a tiny little bit of bone on it. So, good looking breasts, drumsticks, boneless breasts, wings, stock bones. You're good to go. Hope you enjoy.